really matters won't be seen tonight, so we can bring you a very special episode of The Gen X Files. Welcome to The Gen X Files. I'm Jim.
I'm Adam.
And today's show is all about
Monty Python's Flying Circus. Oh man, the last few weeks have been such a joy.
Oh my god.
So amazing going through, and I don't think I've ever actually sat down and watched the entire series.
Yeah.
Like I've seen bits and pieces, and the funny thing is I've owned the entire collection for years.
Right.
And I've just never sat down and watched it straight through.
Sure.
And my God, is this show brilliant.
Holy shit, man. It is evergreen. That stuff is still prescient today.
It's crazy.
It is so funny. It is so British. It's so much fun watching a comedy show that does not give a crap about America.
Oh, yeah.
And the very few times that they do skewer America, it's hilarious. They hate America and they hate Australia, apparently.
They also aren't big fans of France or Spain or pretty much anybody.
No, nobody.
And actually, most of the people inside the UK, they're not big fans of either.
I don't think anybody escapes their savage wit.
No, not at all.
Holy shit, man. So, when I was a little kid, I loved comedy. I got into comedy very, very early because I had my dad's records and I listened to, I mentioned before, Dick Gregory and Jonathan Winters, and Pryor, and Newhart, all the old classics. And so at a very early age, comedy got its teeth into me.
Yeah.
And I remember I used to watch BBC to watch Benny Hill.
Oh, yeah.
Because as a kid, Benny Hill,
yeah.
I could not give less of an S about the sketches and stuff because it's like, I don't care. But all the
goofy slapstick.
Yes, the little bald guy getting slapped all the time was hilarious. And him pitching butts. Cheeky. But I remember, I'm watching on this tiny little TV. We had this teeny color TV that my father bought the night that I was born so he could watch football or whatever, some sport. It was March, so I don't think it was football. But it was some sporting event. Because that's what you did back then. You weren't in there helping.
No.
You were smoking ciggies.
They wouldn't usually allow the men in because they would just cause problems.
The fact that he was at the hospital makes him a hero, by the way. So we had this teeny TV that, we would bring in when we were sick. Our mom would let us use it because we didn't really have a TV in our room.
Sure.
So I had it in my room for whatever reason, and Benny Hill finishes, and then this thing comes on, and I'm like, okay, this animation's weird.
Yeah,
I like this.
Yeah.
And then I think it was the episode in the second season with Silly Walk. Silly Walk is second season, right?
Yes, it was the beginning of the second season, yeah.
That was the first episode I saw, and it was a revelation, man.
Oh, so goofy.
I couldn't.
It's so great.
I didn't quite get the sketches as much, but that animation, Terry Gilliam's animation, hooked me so deeply that I was like, I have to watch the show. And then as I got older, it kind of shifted because I was like all about the animation. Maybe a couple of boobies here and there.
Oh, there's sometimes a lot of boobies. Sometimes a lot. To the point where they even made fun of the fact that there was so much nakedness. Yeah.
Yes, as booby expeditionists back then, because we really had to work for our
you did. You
movie
really
viewing.
did.
It was that was a nice little bonus. But yeah, man, I could not stop watching that show. Like every time it came on, it surpassed Benny Hill for me. And I think more so than any other sketch program. Like I loved Saturday Night Live from the beginning. I loved SCTV. I even liked Fridays.
Oh, yeah.
That had Michael Richards and Larry David. Worst of the bunch. But anything sketch. I mean, I loved sketch. But this, to me, was the most influential. And I think it's probably the most influential for anybody who had sketch comedy group. But what I loved about them was how everything flowed so perfectly.
Right.
How they didn't have endings to sketches. They just were just, and now for something completely different. Or they just, somebody came in, arrested the players, and then moved into another room and another sketch started. It was so brilliant the way that they moved from sketch to sketch or from animation to sketch to animate.
Everything flowed.
It was
well.
a river of comedy
Yeah,
that just
yeah.
flowed into this beautiful lake of laughs.
Right.
But yeah, I'm so happy that we're doing this month of Monty Python, because the more I was watching the show, the more I realized what an incredible influence they were on my comedy.
Yeah.
You know, I was always like, oh, it was the Kids in the Hall, or it was Saturday Night Live, or this. But really looking at this,
Oh, you got to go deeper.
that's the DNA.
Yeah,
That's where
yeah.
the really deep nuggets come from. And I also realized one of my comedy, because I did sketch and improv for 20, 25 years. And it was really funny because watching one of the sketches, I totally had a revelation that one of the guys completely ripped off Monty Python. His whole Australian character.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Because he was like, Australia? Yeah. No, we don't want any of the pooftas. I was
Right,
like, oh,
right.
there's a whole sketch about that, you dirty bastard. Again, he's probably one of the funniest human beings on the planet, and very...
He certainly was not the first person to rip off Monty Python.
And at least he did a great job doing
Right,
it.
right.
But it was very funny. And again, too, I could see our sketches, had... we ripped off, not ripped off, but there were
Influenced, yeah.
definitely
yeah.
influenced.
Oh, everything that came after the show was influenced by Monty Python's Flying Circus.
And I think it was the beginning of my love of concentrated universes, like Stephen King's universe, or because they live in their universe.
Oh, how many times Dimsdale?
Yes!
Like, how many times he would just pop up?
That hedgehog.
Yeah. It was just out of nowhere. Dimsdale! Just out of nowhere.
Yes.
And even like 20 episodes later, it was like, nope, they're doing the callback.
Oh my God, that was what was so great, is if you're a fan, and especially watching it
very quickly. Yeah, binging it. Yeah.
Then you really get to see all the little Easter eggs and nuances. But without a doubt, and without exception, the smartest, funniest, greatest comedy group that has ever existed.
Oh, yeah. Things like SNL and
Kids in the Hall.
Kids in the Hall, SNL, like this
Mr.
stuff
Show.
wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
It's really so sad with SNL because I recently rewatched the first season of SNL,
right?
And the sketches are so obviously influenced by Monty Python.
The very first sketch of the very first show, is a variation of a Monty Python sketch.
But it's really too bad that SNL has gone away from that and just focused on punchlines now because it just doesn't work as well.
They're doing better.
It's not. I mean, it's still good. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, but it's amazing how they kind of. I'm guessing it's because it was that season when Lauren left, and then they were like, we gotta be different. And,
Well, and it's also SNL is just a honed running machine.
Yeah. Well, yes. I mean,
it just kind of goes on its own vapors at this point.
But Monty Python, I was originally introduced, I think like most people that are listening, probably introduced to Monty Python through the Holy Grail.
Right.
Which we'll be covering next week. So for me, it was the movies. It was always the movies first. And really the movies, I mean, the Holy Grail and Life of Brian.
Yeah.
But so the sketch part of it, I always knew they were a sketch group.
Right.
And that the show was good. And I'd seen bits and pieces of sketches and stuff. But for me, it was always that having the bigger story, which is funny because every episode, for the most part, kind of does that.
Yeah.
Like, it'll stray away and come back, but like it always manages to button with whatever topic that they covered from the beginning.
Yep.
Or they wouldn't cover it at all, and then it would be the last 10 seconds, and it would be like, oh, okay.
Yes. And then they bring it back 3 episodes later,
Yeah.
and in a very different and weird and fun way.
Oh, it was just so... I've never seen 6 people work together so well.
And I think the reasoning is because they were primarily writers.
Yes, I 100% agree. I think it's because none of them thought of themselves as performers.
Yeah.
And it didn't hurt any that, the 5 years before, all of them worked on a ton of shows.
Yes.
Ton of sketch comedy shows, a ton of stuff, working with people that were older than them that had been doing it for much longer.
Right.
They were very good at gleaning information and gleaning that influence from their peers.
Right. They're mentors.
Mentors, thank you. That's
and
really
also,
more,
and also the players themselves had been working together in different incarnations
Yes.
since like 1960. So for
Yeah,
like 10
yeah.
years.
Or
different.
even 1959
Yeah.
To a certain point. Yeah.
Okay, 59. But
Well, I mean, just
I know.
you know, but it's interesting, and I'm so excited to get into this. This month we're going to cover it a little differently. We're not going to go deep into each of the characters for each of the actors performers for this show. We're going to cover a couple of them every episode after this,
Right.
To focus on, so we can really deep dive into who these guys are.
yeah,
Yeah.
they deserve it.
They do. I mean, they had such an interesting lives.
And still do. Most
It's
of them. Some of them.
most of them, about 4/6 of them, 2/3 of them.
Yeah. We lost two of the guys.
Unfortunately, yeah.
So sad.
But they were fascinating. All of them were absolutely fascinating. But anyway, do you want to get into
Let's
it?
get into it, baby.
Let's get into it.
And now for something completely different.
Take yourself back to 1969.
Yeah, baby.
September 8th, all daytime programs on ABC and CBS are switched to color.
What?
Yeah, it's so funny. You can see clips online of when various countries and stuff like switched to color and how they would make it a spectacle. Like I think there was in Norway when they did it, like it was, or maybe Denmark, but it was like the color was coming up and they thought they were drowning. So it was like a sketch comedy
Yeah.
show, and they were just like, no. It was really cute. It was
Nice.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember, being home from school and you'd watch certain shows and be like, now in color.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They did it all the way up through like the mid '80s. It was like, wow, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Andy Griffith Show was black and white for forever.
Forever, yeah.
I mean, it did switch to color when it was like Mayberry RFD.
Right.
And that was very jarring. I did not like seeing Mayberry in color. It's too weird. Didn't like it.
I need it to be shades of gray.
Yes. Take away the noir quality.
Right. Oh, Lord. October 2nd, a 1.2 megaton thermonuclear device is tested on Amchitka Island in Alaska. The test is codenamed Project Milrow, the 11th test of the Operation Mandrill between 1969 and 1970 underground nuclear test series. This test is known as a calibration shot to test if the island is fit for larger underground nuclear detonations.
Gross. Crazy. And also, what a boring name for such
Yeah,
a
I know.
destructive thing. Might as well just call it Project Milk Toast.
I know. I'm pretty sure as a country, if you get to the point where you're detonating a 1.2 megaton bomb to see if you can blow up bigger bombs, you got too many bombs.
Too many bombs.
Too many.
Yeah, we were all about bombs.
Oh, had
Loved our
to.
bombs.
Had to. We had to get more than the other guys.
Yeah, and we did.
Yay!
Yay, bombs.
October 4th, Diane Linkletter, the 21-year-old daughter of popular TV show host Art Linkletter, died after falling or jumping from a window of her sixth-floor apartment at the Shoretown Towers in West Hollywood. Diane had made regular appearances on her father's show during the 68-69 season. The elder Linkletter attributed the death to his daughter's use of the hallucinogenic drug LSD and told reporters it wasn't suicide because she wasn't herself. It was murder. She was murdered by the people who manufacture and sell LSD. He clarified in an interview with the LA Times that Diane was already somewhat emotional and dramatic, that she had confided in him that she had experimented with LSD 5 months earlier and had a bad experience, and that she apparently had taken the drug again hours before calling a friend and her brother to say that she was terrified. The tragedy would become part of an urban legend that during the LSD trip, Diane had jumped because she believed she could fly and would be cited in debates over stricter controls over illicit drugs.
That is a horrible, tragic story, but yeah, I mean, we all heard the thing. My roommate in college, his best friend, who was also going to college, he died falling out of a window on acid.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't because he thought he could fly.
Right.
I think it was just an accident.
Right.
But again, people were like, "Oh, he thought he could fly, and he jumped out from acid." And look, some people should not take hallucinogenic drugs.
Yes.
Just like some people shouldn't drink, some people shouldn't do anything.
Right,
it is
right.
if you have any sort of mental disorder, if you are schizophrenic, if you have any type of, mental disorder, then stay away. Or if you're a control freak, or if you're afraid of losing control, stay away. But in subsequent years, we have found out that hallucinogenics, such as LSD or psilocybin and mushrooms, or even MDMA, can help fight PTSD,
yeah.
depression,
Yeah.
suicidal thoughts, used correctly.
Yeah, when done in small doses and used correctly.
And to be honest, I did a lot of hallucinogenics when I was in college, and I credit mushrooms with helping me get rid of my anger issues, or at least getting them under control and understanding them.
Right.
So for me, hallucinogenics was a very positive experience that I think helped me become a better person, but that's not everybody's experience.
No. You're spot on. Like, there are people that should never take hallucinogenics. Unfortunately, you really don't know until you do take them.
But I've known people that were going to trip with us, and I said, you should not do this.
Yeah. That's what you need to have, a good support system. You need to have people around you that have experience. And if you do want to do it, you need to make sure you trust everybody around you and help guide you through that time.
I used to be like a profession. But no, in college, I would be a guide. You know, I wouldn't necessarily do the drug, but I would be there to help the person, at least in the beginning, process the feelings and just get through that initial...
That suddenly strange feeling?
Yes. Which is so funny, because I remember the first time I did mushrooms, I was really nervous.
Yeah.
Because, you've heard all your life that this stuff is going to kill you.
You're going to jump out the window because you think you can fly.
Yes, and I had a roommate who's,
Yeah.
But I remember we ate the mushrooms. There's 4 of us. We got on the T, the
in Boston.
public transportation in Boston. It's called the T. It's like a trolley train.
Kind of like an overground train.
Yeah. And we were all sitting in different parts of the T because it was, packed. And we all, at the same moment, looked at each other and burst out laughing. This uncontrollable laughter. I felt such joy. It hit my dopamine in such a punch.
Yeah.
It was hilarious. And we had to get off the T because we couldn't stop laughing.
Oh, wow.
And then we just tripped around the city and had the greatest time. And, look, like I said, not for everybody, but it's not as dangerous as people say. And especially if you're doing it with people you trust in a controlled environment and,
Yeah. I mean, it's good for certain people.
Sure.
And it should be used in moderation, obviously.
Definitely.
It's very tragic what happened to Art Linkletter's daughter.
Of course it is. It's tragic when anybody dies when they're on some sort of substance. But a lot of times it's what's behind the substance that does. And I'm sure she had depression
She
and
had
issues.
some issues.
It can exacerbate that. I've been with people with bad trips, and it can be really scary.
Yeah. If you're in a bad mood like with alcohol, if you're in a bad mood and you start drinking, you're not going to get a better mood.
Right.
You're just going to exacerbate your bad mood.
Yeah, and what you bring in to the trip is pretty much how the trip goes.
Yeah.
So if you bring in fear and you bring in anger or whatever, I mean, it's really hard to be angry when you're
angry when you're
acid.
tripping balls.
But anyway,
look,
look into it. If you got depression or if you're suffering from PTSD,
microdoses are good for you.
And you live in certain states.
You
can use that therapy, and it could be very helpful.
October 5th, Monty Python's Flying Circus premieres on the BBC. So Monty Python's Flying Circus starts with Barry Took, the BBC's comedy advisor, wanting a new sketch comedy show.
I want a new sketch comedy show.
Yeah. He brought in John Cleese, Graham Chapman, Terry Jones, Michael Palin, Eric Idle, and Terry Gilliam, along with John Howard Davies, who directed the first 4 episodes, and Ian McNaughton, who directed most of the rest of the show.
All right.
All of the soon-to-be-called Pythons had worked together in various capacities since 1964. Jones and Palin were members of the Oxford Review, a comedy group at Oxford founded in 1953, which produced a large number of comedians and satirists.
All right.
Chapman, Cleese, and Idle were part of Cambridge University's Footlights, a sketch comedy group that was founded in 1883.
Ooh, I bet those 1883 sketches were hilarious.
I didn't even know sketch comedy existed in 1883.
Yes, it was like, yes. So, do you have cholera?
No.
I do.
Oh,
and now you do too. Topical.
Next sketch. While Footlights was on tour in the U.S., they met Gilliam and worked with him after he moved to Europe. And we will talk more about that. We're going to focus on Chapman and Cleese in the next episode, so you will hear more about that.
What about Gilliam? Why did he move Do you know why he moved away?
We will talk about that in the last episode.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah. The six had been getting together, brainstorming ideas when Took called, so they were well prepared for the opportunity.
So they
had technically been getting together writing stuff with no show in mind. They had just wanted to write sketches.
They got together without
spontaneously, yeah.
All of them?
Not all of them, but I mean, I think individually they had gone through and kind of, they when they got the phone call, they said, "Oh, we've got some ideas. We'll pull some other people in." I think Gilliam was probably the last one to get pulled in,
right?
But yeah, they had ideas and what they wanted to do. They were admirers of the TV show Beyond the Fringe, starring Peter Cook and Dudley Moore, a seminal offering during the satire boom of the mid-'60s in England.
Amazing show, by the way. Have you ever seen?
I've seen clips. Yeah. But Dudley Moore and Peter Cook are brilliant.
Brilliant. And Dudley Moore, he's one of the most talented human beings.
Oh, my God.
Not just a great comedian, a great actor, but an amazing pianist.
Oh, my God. So good.
I mean, the guy was just...
so talented.
Yeah, without a doubt. Little guy.
Like a tiny guy. You can
Little
fit in your
guys
pocket.
work harder.
Fit in your pocket. Yeah, they have to. They're trying as hard as they can to try to grow bigger.
My favorite thing about him, was that his wife was Susan Anton, and she was like 6'2".
Yeah, she was.
And it was the greatest. It was like the reverse King Kong Fay Ray. I loved it. She just towered above him.
Yeah.
She pressed her elbow on his head. He didn't like that. Get off of me!
When they went out to dinner, he would sit in a baby stroller.
Yes,
she would just push
feed him.
Yeah.
Here comes the airplane! Stop it! You're embarrassing me.
So, despite enjoying the show, they felt the meat of the sketch was funny. They all agreed that most sketches would fall flat when trying to deliver a punchline.
That is so true, though. Like, ending a sketch is the hardest thing.
This was my reference to SNL, is that while sometimes it works, most of the time it doesn't. So the sketch is funny, and then they try to button it somehow, and it's like, oh, okay.
The only way that I found for it to work well was if I was reverse engineering a sketch. Like if I came up with the ending and then reverse engineered it to the beginning, then I could completely
get fit. There. Yeah. If you just had a concept and then tried to find a punchline, it was probably not going to work.
But we didn't, our sketches weren't like, ba-dum-bum, psh, we tried to do something a little bit more... Something completely different.
Right.
But, you never, not always. And, ending sketches is tough, and they've solved that problem well.
They did so well. Yeah, so to solve this, they just simply stopped writing punchlines. Terry Gilliam said...
Our first rule was no punchlines. Some sketches start brilliant. Great acting, really funny sketch, but the punchline is just not as good as the rest of the sketch. So it kills the entire thing. And that's why we eliminated them.
Unfortunately, while preparing material for the upcoming show, Q, starring Spike Milligan, who the Pythons admired, did exactly what they were intending to do, create a sketch show that didn't have punchlines. Q was more irreverent and anarchic than any previous television comedy, with Milligan often giving up on sketches halfway through and wandering off set, often muttering, "Did I write this?"
That's hilarious.
Afraid that their new show would appear unoriginal, they knew they had to innovate.
Yeah. Well, which is great because they could have just done it.
They could have, and it still would have been brilliant.
Yeah.
But they wanted to be original.
Of course.
They had to do something else.
Spike Milligan, have you ever seen any of his stuff?
I don't think I've seen any of his stuff. Yeah.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. You can see the DNA of the Pythons in his work. You could definitely see where they lovingly,
kind of sprouted from.
No, but it's got that irreverent. It's another innovator, another person who wanted to zag when everybody else was zigging and create something new in comedy.
Yeah. Terry Jones, who was very vocal about changing the show, recalled an animation that Gilliam did for the show Do Not Adjust Your Set called Beware of the Elephants.
Ooh.
Do Not Adjust Your Set was, I think, like 5 or 4 of them worked on it.
Okay.
I don't remember. There was a list. I didn't include it. Palin recalled another Gilliam animation, Christmas Cards, and argued that a stream of consciousness format would work well for the show.
Yeah.
Cleese, Chapman, and Idle didn't particularly care about the flow of the show, so Palin, Jones, and Gilliam became responsible for the look of the show, working the sketches to flow into each other in odd and new ways.
This is why they worked so well together.
Yeah.
Because not everything was a battle, and not everybody had to be part...
I just left the three of them were like, okay, whatever, just do whatever.
This is what's beautiful about this, because I've told you and everybody, and you know this, because you background in sketch, is there's nothing more dramatic than a sketch group. There's no more drama
yes.
than the BS behind a sketch group. And 90% of it is insecurity.
Yeah.
And that was with the Choops. We were a bunch of talented, headstrong dudes that were very insecure and competitive with each other that stood in our way. And if we could have just relaxed and had a little bit, trusted each other, I guess, a little bit more, then we would have done better.
Yeah, it's so funny because it seems like when sketch groups do get along and don't fight, they become insanely successful, like Kids in the Hall, who continue to work together for decades.
Yeah.
So writing started at 9 a.m., finished at 5 p.m. Typically, Cleese and Chapman worked as one pair, isolated from the others, as did Jones and Palin, while Idle wrote alone. After a few days, they would join with Gilliam, critique their scripts, and exchange ideas.
Nice.
Their approach to writing was democratic. If the majority found an idea humorous, it was included in the show. If it wasn't, they didn't.
Perfect.
That was it.
That's how we did it.
I don't know what would happen if they had a tie. but
that was with us too. With you only have 4.
Yeah,
and then you duke it out.
I mean, whatever it was, my guess is that it probably didn't. That probably didn't happen very often.
No,
like it would be somebody. I would guess that even if one person thought it wasn't funny, they would probably question it and go, "Okay, what can we do to make it better?"
Right, or why do you think it's not funny?
Right.
Yeah. But I also think that there probably wasn't a lot of issues because it seemed like they were very much on the same page.
Yeah, they respect each other's work and it's interesting. Next week when we talk about Cleese and Chapman, it's really interesting how their writing partnership worked. But it was a lot of respect.
Yeah.
It was they knew what they were good at and they knew what they weren't good at.
Right.
And they allowed each other to shine.
That is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Is knowing what you're not good at.
Yeah.
Because we're all good at stuff, and we all think we're great at everything, but we're really not.
We're not.
Yeah.
We're definitely not. The casting for roles of the sketches was a similarly unselfish process, since each member viewed themselves primarily as a writer rather than an actor eager for screen time. So no egos.
In terms of acting, sure.
Yeah. Well, no, yes. I mean, and it's not, even with the writers, the writing process, they still, they respected each other enough.
Well, look. I don't think that there were never arguments because they seemed very headstrong guys. But,
oh no, there were definitely arguments. I mean, I think that at the very beginning when Terry Jones was talking about the flow of how they need to change the show, I think those were probably the biggest arguments.
Right.
Because I think that Cleese and Chapman and Idle just didn't care.
Yeah.
Like, why is that important? And Terry Jones just latched onto that idea and was like, no, we have to do this.
And great that he did, because it created a unicorn, man. Something that has never been done. They have tried to replicate.
Oh no, and it
Monty
just does
Python.
not work.
Every comedy group tries to be Monty Python.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting because the casting of roles generally, and this is going to be true for the movies as well. But essentially, if someone wrote a sketch, they would usually be cast in that sketch because it was their sketch.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think they would write for somebody else,
right,
or like having Eric Idle in mind because he's good at this kind of character or whatever. But I think for the most part, if they wrote the sketch, they were in it.
Well, I enjoyed writing for other people.
Yeah.
Because it was less selfish, I guess.
Yeah.
But it was also, I really respected the guys that I worked with, and I knew their strengths.
Right.
And I wanted to write good stuff for them.
Right.
To be funny, know. So it's like, in that respect, I don't know. It's such. I'm just having flashbacks to my comedy days because of watching so much sketch.
Oh yeah. When the themes for sketches were chosen, Gilliam had a free hand in bridging them with animations using a camera, scissors, and airbrush.
How did he figure this stuff out? I just see Terry Gilliam as this weird little kid because he's weird looking.
Such a weirdo.
But I just see him in school in the back just cutting out nudes.
What are you doing with that magazine from 1923?
What are you doing with that book? With your textbook? Nothing. Just cutting out, making animation.
Give me 7 days and I will show you.
I just think he cut out a bunch of nudes and then made them do weird stuff to each other, and that's how he figured it out.
Of course. He was like, look, I'm going to make them bang.
When I was a kid, I went to, when I first went to public school, it was so boring. And I couldn't pay attention because there's nothing going on. I had come from a really good school. So somewhere in a cubby, I found these old mimeographs of Spider-Man worksheets.
Okay.
So all I would do was color the Spider-Man and cut them out.
Oh, yeah.
And make my own Spider-Man cartoons.
Yeah.
while they taught the class.
Oh, yeah.
And I still got great grades because they were idiots.
Because it was, yeah.
I learned more making my Spider-Man paper dolls than I did from Mrs. Nord. That was her name, too.
Wow, okay.
Nord.
While the show was a collaborative process, different factions within Python were responsible for elements of the team's humor. In general, the work of Jones and Palin, the Oxford-educated members, was more visual and more fanciful conceptually, like the arrival of the Spanish Inquisition in a suburban front room.
Nobody suspects the Spanish Inquisition.
That whole episode was so I totally forgot the whole changing numbers. Yeah. 1, 2, no, 3 things? No, 4 things?
No, you do it. You try it. You try it. Nobody expects. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't get it right.
So funny. Cleese, Chapman, and Idle from Cambridge tended to write sketches in a more verbal and more aggressive manner.
There's a lot of yelling.
Yeah. For example, Cleese and Chapman's mini confrontation sketches where one character intimidates or hurls abuse, or Idle's characters with bizarre verbal quirks such as the man who speaks in anagrams.
It's just so smart. But here's what I love about them. Is their comedy is so smart, but it isn't exclusive. It doesn't look down on working class people. It's still accessible to everybody, even though it's brilliant.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of layers going on. They're not snooty about it.
I mean, look at literally the first 3 minutes of the very first show.
Yeah.
Where the first gag is that he sits on a pig, and the pig squeaks, and then they go into talking about how certain historical characters have died and giving them scores. Like, it's like that jump between the two is just so brilliant.
And then the pig keeps popping up.
Yeah. They sit on it a number of times, and then there's animated pigs, and but it's just so brilliant because sitting on a pig is the lowest level of humor.
Sure.
But then they turn around, they're talking about historical figures.
Well, it's like their Village Idiot sketch, which is one of my favorite, where and they're idiots, and then they're doing like a documentary about the Village Idiot. John Cleese is one of them. And he's like, and then as soon as the people leave, he's like, well, it's very important to have a Village Idiot for other people to look down upon and feel better about themselves.
I've got a long line of village idiots. My father was a village idiot. I have to keep it up.
Yes, it's a family business. It's just, that's what's so brilliant about it. I can talk about it all day.
I know.
Everything I think about, every memory or every thought about their show makes me laugh. I can't think of watching it. What amazed me so much was I did not see one loser of a sketch. One dumb idea, one misstep. I can't think of anything that didn't work.
No. It all worked, and it all was very funny.
Worked brilliantly. And granted, look, full disclosure, I didn't finish rewatching the entire series. I only got through the first couple of seasons, and I'm going to finish it.
Yeah.
But so I don't know if they started slipping towards the end, but
I don't think so. I mean, to me, the second series is probably the pinnacle.
Yeah.
Because they got a little more, and we'll get more into this later, but they get a little. I think they had a little more confidence and were taking a little more risk.
Well, yeah, they've got success. They have fans. They know that it works.
Yeah.
And so you're absolutely right. With the confidence they have from the first season, they just really, really up their game.
And it did. The second season came so quickly after the first season.
Yeah.
Because it finished airing in like January of 1970, and by like September they were airing new shows.
Yeah.
And so it was like they were just in that mode.
Yeah.
And the later stuff isn't bad. I mean, by any means, it's still brilliant.
Yes.
But I do think it's a little, and we'll talk more about it with John Cleese, but I do think there was some truth to some stuff being rehashed. And then the last season, unfortunately, was just truncated because, by that point, they realized it was just not happening.
Well, that level of comedy is hard to sustain. To be able to come up with that much material that is smart and brilliant and funny and goofy and dumb.
And got so many sketches in 30 minutes.
Well, I was so surprised at how many of the absolute classic sketches, like, wink, wink, don't you know,
nudge, nudge.
And Dead Parrot and the Spanish Inquisition were all in the first 2 seasons. A lot of them in the first season.
Yeah, there were quite a few in the first season. Yeah,
the Dead Parrot.
Oh my God,
it's dead. Oh yeah, I mean, yeah. Keep going, sorry.
Cleese confirmed that
Most of the sketches with heavy abuse were Graham's and mine. Anything that started with a slow pan across the countryside and impressive music was Mike and Terry's. And anything that got utterly involved with words and disappeared up any personal orifice was Eric's.
just love that he had to single out Eric as shoving things up his butt.
Yes, well, he did like that. Eric Idle, oh my God. I think Michael Palin is probably my favorite. I think he's the best performer of the bunch.
It's funny because watching this, I mentioned this when we've been trading the discs back and forth, and I mentioned this that every episode I'm like, Cleese is the best.
Yeah.
Nope, it's Chapman. Oh my God, Chapman's so good. And then no, it's Idle. Oh my God, Idle's so good. And Palin and Jones, like they're all just so brilliant,
so uniquely good. But there's something about Palin that I think he's just a bit of a better performer. And they're writers, but I think he's a closet actor. He may say, "Oh, I'm just a writer," but I think his eyes are so perfect all the time. His characterizations, he is so vulnerable and lovable. And there's just he's a puppy. You just want to cuddle him.
The irony is that the Pythons would disagree with you.
Oh, sure.
They thought that Chapman was the best actor.
Oh, really?
Which is why they cast him in lead for the first two movies.
Which is funny because as much as I love Chapman, there's something about me that was like, oh, he's kind of bland. But he's not. He's deceptive.
Not. He's exactly.
So deceptively good.
Yeah.
Because he looks like a banker.
Yeah. He looks like a cop.
Yeah,
like
the rest of them look like weird, goofy, animated goons.
They're characters.
Yes.
They're literally characters.
But he looks like somebody that would, oh, yes, well, I'm coming. What's your bank loan?
Yeah.
But, and it's very funny because I'm like, But every time I see him in a sketch, he knocks it out of the park. And I'm just
so
like, okay,
great.
He's
great. So great.
And he is so good. I love Holy Grail. But his performance in Life of Brian is so goddamn good.
Yeah, and we will talk about that and why.
Yeah.
It was so good.
Yeah. I'm so excited. That's the one that I haven't seen in the longest time.
I have not either. It's been a long time.
And I think it's my favorite of the movies.
The Pythons would agree with you.
Well, maybe I should join the group.
It was their favorite as well.
Well, anything that, lampoons religion and heresy.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. It's fun. Gilliam's animations range from the whimsical to the savage, along with a healthy dose of vintage erotica.
Oh, yeah. He loved him.
So much erotica from the 1880s.
Oh, yeah.
It was weird.
He loved boobies.
He did.
He loved
really
putting
old-timey boobies.
Yes. Yes. It's just like doing the full frontal nudity.
That whole bit where there was technically no full frontal nudity the whole time, but it was so brilliant.
Well, it's just to titillate you people. When I was a little kid, I remember seeing full frontal nudity, and I'm like, "Oh, this is gonna be a good one." And then by the time it was over, I didn't care because I was just like,
it was just funny,
so funny. I lost my masturbatory urges. And that's hard when you're 11 or 12 or 13.
Several names for the show were considered before Monty Python's Flying Circus was settled upon. Some were
Owl Stretching Time, The Toad Elevating Moment, A Horse, a Spoon, and a Basin, Vaseline Review, and Burn, Whack It, Buzzard, Stubble, and Boot.
Reportedly, these names were considered for the show because the group members found it funny that the show name would have nothing to do with the actual content of the series.
Which I think is great.
Flying Circus stuck when the BBC explained it had printed that name in its schedules and were not prepared to amend it.
Okay.
Gwen Dibley's Flying Circus was named after a woman Palin had read about in the newspaper, thinking it would be amusing if she were to discover she had her own TV show.
That is brilliant.
Which is hilarious. Yeah. Arthur Megapode's Flying Circus was suggested, then discarded. Baron von Tuck's Flying Circus was considered as an affectionate tribute to Barry Tuck, the man who had brought them together.
That's not a bad one.
The name Baron von Tuck's Flying Circus had the form of Baron Manfred von Richthofen's Flying Circus of World War I fame, and the new group was forming in a time when the Royal Guardsmen's 1966 song Snoopy versus the Red Baron had peaked.
Oh, yeah, remember that song?
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of weird songs. Quick speed bump. I was listening to some old music on a walk the other day, and I realized we don't get story songs anymore.
No, not really.
Like I was listening to Brandy.
Oh, yeah.
Brandy.
Yeah.
It's just such a great little story song.
Oh, it is. It's totally.
She's working in the... Oh, my God. Anyway, I miss, Wreck of the... Wreck of the... not Hesperus, the... Fitzgerald, what is it?
Edmund Fitzgerald.
Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
Great story song.
Yeah, there's I agree. I agree. It's not. I don't think it's as common anymore.
In country music, it is. Probably.
Yeah. We're not gonna talk about that. The term flying circus was also another name for the popular entertainment of the 1920s known as barnstorming, where multiple performers collaborated with their stunts to perform a combined set of acts.
Those were cool. Did you ever see like wing walkers and stuff?
Oh yeah.
Not Barry Pepper. Something Waldo Pepper's Flying Circus or something.
No.
That was a movie with Robert Redford where they
stunts
did
the stunts. Yeah.
The Great Waldo Pepper. That's
Great Waldo Pepper. There's a lot of debate and rumor of where the name Monty Python came from, but one thing they all agreed on was that it was just funny.
It is.
Yeah.
Monty Python is probably the greatest name ever created for comedy.
I mean, it's just I think at the end of the day, this is how they worked. It was just like, well, it's funny. This is funnier than the other thing, so we're going to go with this.
It just seems like something that's been around forever. Monty Python. That's just the way that it comes off of your the rolls off of your tongue. Monty Python. It's perfect.
It is. The show did not adhere to any rules and everything was fair game. The show popularized the idea of a cold open, something that wasn't common at the time.
Nice.
They even inverted those expectations by sometimes having the opening titles appear much later in the show or rolling the end credits first over the opening titles.
Yep.
Yeah, there was one episode where I totally forgot they hadn't done the titles, and then it came up, Monty Python's Flying Circus, and it was like 20 minutes into the show.
Yes, I remember the one.
I was just like, what? It was great. To get out of sketches, sometimes an armor-clad Terry Gilliam would walk into frame and hit a character on the head with a rubber chicken.
Yep.
That happened quite often. Or they would just stop the sketch with Chapman's anti-silliness colonel demanding the sketch is too silly and must be stopped immediately. Which is it's such a brilliant way to end a sketch.
It is, but that's the thing.
How do we get out of this?
Exactly. To do a show without punchlines is easy. To do a show without punchlines and do it cleverly, where it makes sense and it's organic, is hard.
Right.
And to make they made dudes in armor, Vikings.
Yeah. The randomly cutting to the Viking in the studio. Like, I don't know how many times
always.
they cut. It was so
There's
great.
Always Vikings.
Just one line, one word, or they would just show his face and then cut to something else.
They just had this menagerie of bizarre characters that would just show up. One of my favorite things is the talking head bits when they would have people commenting on the sketch. Be like,
yes.
Hey, I didn't find that very funny at all.
Yeah.
I found it very funny.
Or the letters. Yeah. Like, dear sir or madam, I'm writing to inform you that the letter that was received before was totally inappropriate.
That sketch coming up is about the babe.
It was so great.
And brilliant, too, because that eats up time.
Yeah.
You know, you just shoot the letter while it's being read. You're saving money. So you can blow 8 things up. I mean,
so you can do as many explosions as possible.
Just, goddamn, man.
So great. They would sometimes drop a cartoonish 16-ton weight on a character to end a scene. Yes. The best was the bit, I think it's where Chapman's teaching them how to do martial arts.
Yes.
And that whole sketch.
He's just shooting everybody.
He's
like, want to shoot us.
Yeah, I can't attack you. You're going to shoot me.
I won't shoot you.
But you will. And then the 16-ton weight drops on him.
That's another thing.
It's
like,
so brilliant.
As a child of Looney Tunes.
Right.
It fit right into that same silliness.
Totally.
You know, it had that weird, crazy, loony, unpredictable feel to it that the cartoons did.
Yeah.
Nobody was dropping stuff. And again, with like the cold openings, they would just, like you said, just start and do something.
Yeah.
And then go to the next thing, and then you're like, well, what's going on?
Yeah.
And then they start.
Or the cold open where they were like shooting, I think it was in the second series, where it was like them shooting like a documentary about like the 1700s and pirates. And they, for like 5 minutes, it would just go and go and go. And then they drag it past John Cleese, and there he is as an anchorman, ready to get out of the scene. That was suited Cleese would come on as a BBC announcer and declare,
and now for something completely different.
Which was also inverted many times through the run of the show.
Yeah.
Sometimes he wouldn't finish the sentence. Sometimes it would be, and now for something completely the same.
Yes.
You know, or whatever.
And they would combine Palin's, you know, not homeless guy, but his old
yeah. He was like a, like a hermit or something.
Yeah. Bearded old guy, and he'd come... Poor son of a bitch, man.
Running.
He would have to run and run and run and run. But so great, because it was silent. You just hear...
Yeah.
what I love so much, and I have copied this shamelessly so many times, is they're brilliant at the audio of that kind of thing. Cutting from like music, to the person breathing, the juxtaposition. I've done that so many times. Yeah. Everybody's done it. But they did it brilliantly. And there's just something really funny about a dude breathing heavy.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, what is... Because you kind of see something, but you're like, what is going on? And then he just runs up, it's...
Yeah. Oh, and then that either...
Then they so subverted that so many times.
Yes. And that's the thing, too, is they didn't necessarily adhere to their own rules.
No, yeah, because there were no rules.
Yes. So, you know, it was funny because we were talking, going from the first series to the second series, and I was like, yeah, I can't believe that Palin had to keep doing this. And you're like, well, I think he stopped because, there's a thing where they cut to him and he's a skeleton.
And he's supposedly dead.
But he's not,
But he's not. They bring him back.
Yeah,
of course they bring him back. My absolute favorite of the BBC announcer, John Cleese, the BBC announcer, was the tracking shot where they had women in bikinis. And it went on for so long. There were so many women in bikinis. And I was like, what in the hell is going on? And then it cuts to him, John Cleese, as the announcer in a bikini laying on the desk. And he said, now for something completely different. It was just like, what? It was so great. It was so great.
Yes. And them playing women. And,
oh, my God, they're so good at women.
And that's the thing, too, is like every time, the Kids in the Hall did the women thing. And, if you're an all-male group, you're going to inevitably do the woman thing. Yeah. And we did that for a while. But then we were like, everybody's doing that. So let's just
not do that.
Just
not talk about women.
Just keep women out of it. They're not funny anyway.
Oh,
I'm
rude,
totally joking.
Rude.
Women are hilarious. Like Iowa Debery, Sarah. I was gonna say Sarah Palin, Sarah Silverman, Kate McKinnon.
Yeah, you're just gonna keep
Leslie Jones.
Women. Okay. The Python theme music is the Band of the Grenadier Guards rendition of John Philip Sousa's "The Liberty Bell," which was first published in 1893. Under the Berne Convention's country of origin concept, the composition was subject to United States copyright law, which states that any work first published prior to 1924 was in the public domain owing to copyright expiration. This enabled Gilliam to co-opt the march of the series without having to make any royalty payments.
Smart.
Brilliant man.
And it's a perfect.
It is. It is absolutely perfect. Gilliam's surreal collage stop-motion animations was another innovative intertextual element of the Python style. Many of the images Gilliam used were lifted from famous works of art and from Victorian illustrations and engravings. The giant foot that crushes the show's title at the end of the opening credits is the foot of Cupid, cut from a reproduction of the Renaissance masterpiece Venus, Cupid, Folly, and Time by Bronzino.
Hilarious.
This foot and Gilliam's style in general are our visual trademarks of the show.
It changed my mind. It changed my life seeing that animation.
Oh,
there was nothing like it.
Yeah.
And if you look at Yellow Submarine, when did that come out?
It had to have been around that time.
Yeah.
Or like 68, 69.
It looked like that was influenced. There was
Maybe
a lot
even
of
70.
information that I think was influenced by Terry Gilliam and his bizarre. But it wasn't just cutouts, I mean, it's very much similar to the way that the South Park guys started doing their stuff.
Yeah.
Cutting things out, whatever. But it's the way it moved, and that one little weird guy in the trench coat that's in all the stuff with the big nose. Running around.
Gets run over and
yes,
stuff. Yeah.
He has his recurring characters that would come back.
The weird Victorian, like somebody's head would disappear and then somebody else would pop out, or they'd like push it back down. It was just the weird subversion of expectations.
Yeah.
It was so brilliant.
And it again, stream of consciousness is the perfect way to put it because there was no real rhyme or reason. It was like watching a dream.
It was just what is going to be the funny thing that's going to happen next.
And somehow it either bridged or related or set up the sketches previous and coming and during. It was such a brilliant flow, man. That was
a lot Gilliam. That was a lot of Gilliam. I mean, he was tasked with like making the whole thing work.
Well, you can see from that the germination of the crazy effing films he made.
Oh yeah.
From Baron von Munchausen. Listen to Baron Munchausen. Sorry.
Baron Munchausen.
I always say Von because it's his Christian name. Like
Time Bandits and I mean, just the absolute surrealness of his work.
Yes, even Fisher King. I mean, everything that he's done. Frame one, it's a Terry Gilliam project.
Yeah,
and this is the germination of all those projects. There's something.
Oh, yeah.
Every one of his projects, there is a little germ of it in some sort of animation throughout the show.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll be talking about the individual pythons in upcoming episodes. So we're going to discuss the associate pythons that were very important to the show, with multiple people being referred to as the seventh python.
Yes. Some people say that I'm the seventh python.
Yeah, no. Neil Innes. Innes was a musician and the only person, along with Douglas Adams, to get writing credit for a sketch on the show.
If you don't recognize the name Douglas Adams, you definitely recognize his work, as he wrote The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah, he was a huge fan of Monty Python, and actually, I think he befriended Chapman, and like became really close with him.
Oh yeah,
and they credited him on one sketch.
Well, he's got the same mind. I mean, if you read Hitchhiker's Guide, it is brilliantly absurd.
Peas in a pod.
I remember, this is a tiny speed bump, but I remember getting the Hitchhiker's Guide text game for Apple II, and playing that. And just being immersed in this world. It was all reading. There were no graphics or anything. It's all text games were crazy.
The
but
books
it was
are so good.
Yes.
So good. So Neil Innes created the Bonzo Dog Doodah Band, which first appeared on Do Not Adjust Your Set.
Okay.
He also appeared in Monty Python and the Holy Grail, writing the songs Knights of the Round Table and Brave Sir Robin, along with others.
Brave Sir Robin. He's like, stop, get away from me.
So excited to watch
He
Holy
ran
Grail
away,
again.
didn't he?
He also appeared in The Life of Brian, performing the whistling on the hit song Always Look on the Bright Side of Life.
Always look on the bright side of life. You could have done that.
That was okay. That was about 90%. Yeah. He contributed music to the Monty Python albums Monty Python's Previous Record in 1972 and the Monty Python Matching Tie and Handkerchief in 1973.
Yes, and again, you forget, they had a ton of comedy albums.
They released so many albums.
That were not just rehashes of their sketches. It was completely different material.
Yeah. He also played a major role in performing and writing songs and sketches for their final TV series in 1974 after John Cleese temporarily left the troupe. He would continue to work with various members after the show ended, appearing in Gilliam's Jabberwocky in 1977 and co-creating the Roodles, a Beatles spoof band with Eric Idle.
It's the Ruddles.
The Ruddles. Well, I think it's the Beatles, so whatever.
Okay, well, tomato, I suppose. Have you ever seen Jabberwocky?
No.
You need to see Jabberwocky.
I was scarred by a English teacher in college. English TA, sorry. He was teaching assistant. Was teaching the individual class, and he did a rendition of the Jabberwocky poem.
Yeah.
And it was so frightening. Not like in a bad way, but like he got so into it, and I was so young, and I was like, "This is not what I wanted in college. Like this is weird." So I've stayed away from Jabberwocky stuff for the most part. But I've heard the movie's really good.
Yeah. I don't know if it's really good, but it's definitely worth seeing.
Okay. Sadly, Innes died of a heart attack on December 29th, 2019 at Montcuq-Lot, France, where he had lived for several years.
Aww.
Connie Cleveland, she was referred to as the female Python. Cleveland appeared in 32 episodes out of 45, along with all 4 movies.
She was so goddamn good.
So good.
Oh my God, that one sketch where they're making the Hollywood movie based on the Tundra guy or whatever.
Yeah,
and Michael Palin's got the he's the it's one of their American sketches.
Yeah.
And they've got Cleese playing the Greet, it's Greet, the director from Scotland.
Scottish director.
It's Greet, we'll do it. It's Greet. But she, as the American ingenue, was brilliant.
So funny.
And she was always, her character work is amazing.
Yeah.
And to keep up with those madcap zany guys and also upstage them quite a bit.
Yeah.
She was an incredible performer.
She was really great. She was born in East Sheen, London, and moved to the United States with her mother and a U.S. Air Force stepfather at an early age.
Oh my God, East Sheen. Where do they get the names for these towns?
Dude, I don't know, man.
England.
Technically, I think it's a neighborhood in London. I
live in North Perkinpots. I live in Prickle Pink.
I know. It's weird. This is what happens when you have a country that's thousands of years old. Yes. I mean, it's...
let's meet at Snooky's Point.
Snooky's Point.
Gibbly-goop.
She was brought up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Lubbock, Texas, and later Pasadena, California.
Crazy.
She attended John Marshall Junior High School and Pasadena High School.
So was she was
British, technically, but she moved here and did not... I don't believe she had a British accent.
Yeah, well, she did a great job.
Yeah. She is a former Miss California Navy and appeared as Miss Teen Queen in Mad Magazine at age 15.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's weird.
Yeah, but she was in Mad Magazine, so she's my hero.
Yeah. Cleveland returned with her family to London in 1960 and studied at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. A stage actress and model, Cara Cleveland appeared in The Persuaders, in The Saint as a secretary, as a lover of Peter Wyngarde's character in the Avengers TV series episode A Touch of Brimstone in 1966.
Oh, yes. Very exciting episode.
And in other TV shows and films. So she had a career long before. I mean, she was going to be successful regardless.
Of course. She was a beautiful, talented person.
Yeah. She then started to appear in the BBC comedy productions, including The Two Ronnies, Morecambe and Wise, and various works of Spike Milligan, where she gained the attention of the Pythons. She continued to work with a number of the Pythons after the end of the show. She most recently appeared in Alice Through the Looking, a film about Alice going into a post-Brexit London, where she played Queen Elizabeth II. It was weird. I couldn't really find more information about it.
Did you watch it?
No. Just everything I saw about it, just looked very odd. But she's still working. She's 83 and she's still working.
Amazing. That means she was really young when she was doing that show. She was in her 20s.
She was in her early 20s, late teens, early 20s.
Wow.
Yeah. But that was the thing, that's what I love about it, is that they saw her working with Spike Milligan and they were like, we have to hire her.
Yes, because she was so good.
Oh, yeah.
She elevated. They did great playing women, but you were never like, oh, that's a woman. It was always,
it was caricatures of women. Yeah.
And their voices were not very... they didn't do women any favors.
No, they were very, very much caricaturing women. It was,
But when they brought her in, she nailed it every single time.
She was so good. So good. Ian Davidson appeared in 8 episodes over the first 2 seasons of the show, playing 10 different characters. Davidson worked with Barry Humphries as a writer and director for over 50 years. Does the name Barry Humphries sound familiar?
Yes.
He's better known as Dame Edna.
Yes, Dame Edna.
Who I believe Barry Humphries is Australian,
yes.
if I remember correctly.
And I believe he's dead.
Yes, he has died.
I believe he's dead. Well, he was great. It was always weird to see non-Python people coming in, especially when there weren't all the Pythons in the sketch.
Yeah. It was definitely weird when it was like, because sometimes they'd be extra guys and they wouldn't say anything, but then suddenly they'd have a lot of lines and it's like, who is this?
Oh my God. And whenever Terry Gilliam came on, it was jarring. He is one weird-looking MFer, man.
Oh my God. His second appearance as the nude organist is one of the creepiest things I've ever seen.
He's like looking up.
Just the look, the angle, the looking up. It's
and
like
that smile.
The smile. It's like, no, you're gonna kill people.
They always brought him in to play Germans too, because he did Nazis really well for some reason.
So funny. So the first 5 episodes of the series were produced by John Howard Davies, with Davies serving as studio director and Ian McNaughton acting as location director.
Yeah, because they shot stuff in the studio, all the sketches.
Yeah, they would do the exterior. They would do the
remotes.
Location stuff first, and then bring it in, and then essentially do a live show with an audience.
They did some really elaborate stuff in the field, man.
Oh, from the 6th episode onwards, McNaughton became the producer and sole director on the series. Other regular team members included Hazel Pethig, who did costumes.
Oh my God, what was the budget for raincoats on that show? It must have been $1 million.
It was £1 million.
£1 million, yes. So many raincoats. There wasn't digital back then. They had to actually have people with raincoats. Hundreds of raincoats, man.
Madeline Gaffney, who did the makeup, and John Horton, who is the video effects designer. Maggie Weston, who worked on both makeup and design, married Gilliam in 1973, and they remain together still.
Nice.
They've been married for over 50 years now.
Well, if you're going to make a commitment to that weirdo, then you got to be in love.
Hey, sometimes you find that right person.
You really love me? You want to get married? Okay.
The series was primarily filmed in London studios and nearby locations, although location shooting to take in beaches and villages, including filming in Somerset, Norwich, and the island of Jersey.
That's not New Jersey.
No.
That's Old Jersey in England.
England. Yeah. The first episode aired on the BBC on Sunday, October 5th, 1969 at 10:55 p.m.
Ooh.
The BBC had to reassure some of its workers who were considering going on strike and who thought the show was replacing a late-night religious devotional program by asserting that it was using the alternative programming to give clergymen time off on their busiest day.
No. Listen. Now you've got it all wrong. The clergy are just exhausted. We're giving them a little time off.
They did a sermon at 10 a.m. this morning, and now they have to do it again tonight at 11.
They're not ready for that. They're exhausted. We're just going to put on this comedy. Pretty much the same thing. Pretty much the same.
Yeah. The first series, unfortunately, did not do terribly well on the BBC.
Every time you put something on that is challenging and different, it takes a little time for people to catch on.
Yeah. Some of the BBC execs were vocal about their dislike of the show, calling it
disgusting and nihilistic.
This dislike would stick with the Pythons, with Cleese declaring that after the contractual second series, he would leave the show.
Oh.
Reviewers had mixed opinions. One wrote that the show was
absurd and frivolous,
and that it did not
offer anything very new or exciting.
I think that person watched the show with their eyes shut.
Yes. Because it does, unless there's a bunch of shows that I don't know about that were going on in England back then.
I mean, there was definitely a lot of satire happening, but nothing like this.
No, you got Spike doing his thing that was probably, the closest to
similar. Yeah.
But, even I've seen some of his stuff, and I've seen Cook and More, thank y'all. And yeah, it's English. That's English humor, but it's not the same thing.
Yeah. The Reading Evening Post columnist was more enthusiastic, calling the show
much needed comedy,
and noting that
the real laughs for me came from the crazy cartoon and the Fairy Montage work.
Yeah. As the series continued, reviews became more positive.
Yeah, because people started to realize that it's effing hilarious.
Something brilliant is happening. You're witnessing something brilliant.
You're witnessing history.
The second series fared better in the ratings, but the relationship was strained even further with the BBC, with the troupe and the broadcaster fighting over content.
Oh, yeah. Look, we're not British, but
yeah.
Knowing the politics of the time.
Oh, yeah.
It was so subversive what they were doing.
Yeah.
And it was very, very cleverly subversive because they were doing subversive anti-establishment comedy in the vein of thing, So they hit it there, but British people are pretty smart, so
yeah,
like, we know what you're doing.
There were two sketches in the series finale that the BBC found particularly at fault. A sketch with the troupe making fun of the UK national anthem, which was a big no-no, and a sketch with a comedic take on how to dispose of a dead loved one.
Okay.
The BBC blamed Ian McNaughton for not warning them about the sketches. The third series would find the BBC actually censoring the show.
Really?
Cleese did come back, but he left after the third series ended. Cleese cited that he was no longer interested in the show, believing most of the material was rehashes of prior skits. I think that he had a very definite idea of what he wanted to do with his career.
Yes.
And was just set on that.
Right.
And it was like, yes, the show works well, and I like these guys. He continued to work with them for years. And we'll talk about it next week, which is funny because as soon as he left the show, they literally wrote The Holy Grail and then shot the movie. So it was like, you're not, okay.
I guess I'm in.
Yeah. So it's not, there was definitely no ill will or anything.
Right.
Except Cleese was finding it more difficult to work with Chapman, who was struggling with major alcoholism.
Well, that is tough, man.
Yeah.
Working with somebody with addiction issues is so frustrating.
And this was about at the peak of Chapman's alcohol problems.
Alcohol, I don't know if you've ever dealt with an alcoholic, except for me, but but it's, man, the unpredictability, the absolute, the promises, the bullshit, everything that you have to go through is exhausting.
It was. We'll talk about it more next week, but because we dive way deeper into Chapman. But they were touring, and like the whole group was touring as Monty Python's Flying Circus,
right.
And it was at the point where like Chapman was like missing cues and forgetting lines, and it was just bad.
I know we're going to talk about this, but wasn't it that he would have like a couple of drinks before shooting to like loosen himself up?
It's funny because of all of them, he actually is a trained actor, but he had the worst nerves, and he would drink to make himself get through sketches,
right?
And it was, and it's like it became a crutch, and that was it. And then it's like the alcohol took over, and that was it.
Well, anytime that you're using something to get somewhere, it's inevitably going to
it's going to take
backfire.
over, and then that's
exactly.
it. That's everything.
If you need to drink to perform, then there's something wrong.
But it does have a happy ending, so tune in next week and listen for that.
Yay, I love happy endings.
Yes. Happy ending to a certain degree.
But happy middle.
Yeah,
and then a sad ending.
At least with the alcoholism. The alcoholism had a happy ending.
Yay!
Yeah. So the remaining Pythons, however, went on to produce a shortened fourth series, of which only 6 episodes were made prior to the decision to end the show prematurely.
Very curious to watch that again.
The final episode being broadcast on December 5th, 1974. which was just a little over 5 years after the first episode aired.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely am going to finish before we get to the Stepdad show. Definitely going to finish watching the series.
Yeah, me too.
Both more series, but yeah, I'm really curious without Cleese in it to see how it is because I don't remember any of those episodes.
Neither do I. And I think a lot of times when I was watching it on PBS as a kid, I don't think that they necessarily put it in order.
Yeah.
Did they?
No. They definitely did not. Yeah, it was just slapshot,
Kinda
whatever.
catch as catch can.
Yeah. At the time of the original broadcasting of Monty Python in the United Kingdom, the BBC used Time Life Television to distribute the shows in the United States. For Monty Python, Time Life had been concerned that the show was too British in its humor to reach American audiences and did not opt to bring the program across.
Hey, it makes sense. Remember Time Life? Jesus Christ. Time Life had everything, man. They had books. They had videotapes.
I saw, actually, at that art fair yesterday, I saw someone had one of those, like, Time Life. It was like the Mysticals of the Wizarding World or something.
Love those.
And I was like, I had all those.
Yeah.
At some point, and I think my parents got rid of them.
No!
There was at some point when I moved out, and I had a box that had a bunch of stuff in it, and I think when they moved, it went away.
Anything that you were interested in, Time Life had a brown leather-bound book series of it. Gunfighters of the Old West.
Yeah, the
steamships.
the weird UFO ones.
Yes.
All those. Like, Jana still has all those.
Oh,
and
they're great.
Yeah, they're so good.
You
At some point, I'm gonna get them back.
Your internet in the 70s was your Encyclopedia Britannica collection and your Time Life collections of books.
Yeah.
You had to get into there. When you do your reports, man, get into those.
Oh, yeah.
The ChatGPT of the time was us taking whatever blurb in the Encyclopedia Britannica and trying to put it exactly the same way, but with a few words so the teacher wouldn't know that we all copied it from the same book.
So despite Time Life not bringing over the show became a fixture on the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation beginning in the fall of 1970, and hence was also seen in some American markets, in places like upstate New York and Michigan and parts of Minnesota and stuff.
Knowing that it came on there, you know that it was such a huge influence on SCTV and those cats.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Because they did the same thing, not the same thing, but they created their own universe. It was a town that had a television station, and the shows that were on, the sketches were part of the television station. There was a group of characters behind the scenes.
Definitely heavily influenced.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I think it just gave these guys the confidence to be like, we can do this.
Something different.
Yeah.
And SCTV was very different than Monty Python, but the DNA was there.
Yeah.
It's like they took it and ran with it and did something different.
Yeah. Their first film, and now for something completely different, a collection of sketches from the show, was reshot on film and released in America in 1972, but it did not fare well.
Nobody knew who they were.
I did not realize. I knew that it was a collection of their sketches. I just thought it was a collection of the sketches, not reshot. Like, they reshot everything on film.
Oh, yeah.
Which I had no idea.
Yeah, and they also did a live one with all the live sketches, too.
Yeah. The success of the show allowed the Pythons to start touring live shows. Their first North American tour was in 1973. They performed twice on U.S. television, first on The Tonight Show, hosted by Joey Bishop, and then on The Midnight Special. Neither appearance went down terribly well. Idol described The Tonight Show performance with,
"We did 30 minutes and 15 minutes, no laughs whatsoever. We ran into the green grass in Burbank and we lay down and laughed for 15 minutes because it was the funniest thing ever. In America, they didn't know what on earth we were talking about."
I just love the fact that they bombed so terribly but thought it was hysterical.
Yes, you have to have that mindset, though, because you're going to bomb a lot, I've told that story 1,000 times on the show about Greg Proops and us bombing.
Oh, yeah.
And you learn more from bombs than you do from successes.
Oh, yeah.
And it's, some of the best shows we ever did were in front of just one person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you got to do the same thing regardless of one or 1,000.
Give them the same show regardless.
Exactly.
Despite the poor reception of their live appearances on American television, the Python's American manager, Nancy Lewis, began to push the show herself into the States. In 1974, the PBS member station KERA in Dallas was the first television station in the U.S. to broadcast episodes of Monty Python's Flying Circus.
Way to go, Dallas.
Yeah.
Weird.
So, yeah. Many other PB stations acquired the show, and by 1975, it was the most popular show on these stations.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Look, there were so many comedy nerds out there that were jonesing for something like this.
Yeah.
I told you in my high school, I went to the Bishop School for Boys and Girls, which was a very hoity-toity school for rich kids. that they bust me in from like 30 minutes away to go to. But they had the Gumby Society. And these kids, they wore the galoshes, they had the handkerchiefs, and they all talk like this, and they had their things, and they had little fish belly
so funny, because of everything they could mimic. That is my least favorite set of characters.
Well, it was so weird. And I was, if I wasn't a fat kid with a perm that already had everything going against me, I would have joined. But it was just a little too nerdy. As much as I wanted to be a part of it. It was like one of those high school dilemmas.
Cool enough to join the guys imitating idiots?
Well, no, it wasn't that I wasn't cool enough. I knew that it would be even more social suicide.
Oh.
You know, they were very accepting, of course.
Right.
Because you had to be. but I was, oh man, I can't. I should have, but I didn't.
And now for something completely different, was re-released to American theaters in 1974 and had a much better box office take than the previous release.
Oh, yeah.
With the rise in American popularity, ABC acquired rights to show select episodes of Monty Python's Flying Circus in their Wide World of Entertainment showcase in mid-1975.
TV was so weird.
It was.
There's so many just like weird shows.
It was.
And weird name, Wild World Showcase. It's basically, we don't have any money for this time slot, so we're just going
to make something up and then throw something in from across the pond.
Right.
Whatever.
They would throw like other weird shows in there too.
However, ABC re-edited the episodes, losing the continuity and flow intended in the originals.
Well, there was a lot of stuff they had to cut out too.
Yeah.
American censors were a lot more strict than British ones.
When ABC refused to stop treating the series in this way, the Pythons took them to court. Initially, the court ruled that their artistic rights had indeed been violated, but it refused to stop the ABC broadcasts.
Okay, that's weird.
However, on appeal, the team gained control over all subsequent U.S. broadcasts of its shows. The case also led to their gaining the master tapes of the series from the BBC once their original contracts ended at the end of 1980.
Great.
Which is also why there has been an insane amount of releases of every single show and movie they've done, because they have the rights to it, and whenever they release it, it sells.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they know what they're doing.
Oh, yeah.
We've got 2 different versions of Holy Grail.
Yeah. The show also aired on MTV in 1988. Monty Python was part of a 2-hour comedy block on Sunday nights that also included another BBC series, The Young Ones.
Oh, God, I love The Young Ones so much.
Ones are so good.
I have the complete... We're doing that. I have the complete series.
Yeah, I don't think I have any more, but I did used to own it.
Watching Python strangely made me want to watch The Young Ones again.
Oh, yeah. They're so good.
God, they're so good.
It's such a brilliant... I loved The Young Ones. Actually, Greg turned me on to them.
Yeah.
So thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Greg.
The Young Ones was so good. It was technically a variety show.
Yeah.
Because the BBC at the time didn't have enough money for another sitcom. So they literally were like, well, what if we have a band to play? And they're like, okay, then you're a variety show. So every episode had a band randomly playing.
So great.
Yeah.
Such great characters.
Such a great show.
I had the punk.
Oh, yeah.
And the hippie and all of these.
Living in squalor.
Yes.
It was so good.
Oh, my God. Oh.
So good. Yeah, we're definitely going to cover The Young Ones. And also, again, and we're going to talk about this more next week when we talk about John Cleese, but The Young Ones literally is only 12 episodes.
Yes.
2 series, 12 episodes. Something else I didn't realize, Fawlty Towers, only 12 episodes.
That's insane.
I thought it ran for like 10 years.
So did I.
Nope. Ran in 1974 and 1979. Literally 5 years apart. 6 episodes each. It's insane how much they get done in so little.
Yes, and how these tiny little series, like you say, you think that they're so much bigger because the impact was so huge.
Yes, I've now granted I've not watched Fawlty Towers. I've seen bits and pieces.
Oh, it's great,
but no idea that it was only the initial season was only 6 episodes.
Yeah,
I had no idea.
Yeah, I neither did I. I mean, I know that British series are usually 6 episodes.
Yeah.
And they're like,
well, that's what I was surprised with Monty Python. They were 13.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because it seems like streaming services have now taken on the old BBC model of 6 episodes per series.
Yeah.
But, it's insane. It's insane that these tiny little shows had such a cultural impact.
Huge.
It blows me away even now thinking of 12 episodes for The Young Ones.
Yeah.
But you're right. I thought that Fawlty Towers, Blackadder, these shows were on like constantly for like 10
decades.
years, probably hundreds of episodes.
Yeah. Nope. So brilliant. Shows the brilliant. So brilliant.
Yeah. Well, like the original Office.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
18 episodes?
No, 12.
12 episodes?
12.
And
that's
a special?
It. And in fact, they specifically did 2 seasons because Fawlty Towers only did 2 seasons. And they were like, well, we're sticking. But we'll talk about it more next week.
Great.
After the show ended, the Pythons would continue to do live shows with sketches from the show and reviving older sketches that would predate the Flying Circus.
Cool.
Monty Python Live at Drury Lane, a.k.a. Monty Python Live at the Theatre Royal, Drury Lane, released in the UK in 1974 as their 5th record album.
Isn't that where the Muffin Man lives?
On Drury Lane? Sure. Monty Python Live at City Center performed in New York City and released as a record in 1976 in the U.S. Monty Python Live at the Hollywood Bowl, recorded in Los Angeles in 1980 and released as a film in 1982.
Oh, man. Could you imagine getting to see those guys live?
At the Hollywood Bowl?
Yeah.
Oh, I'd give any... Well, the funny thing is, it's in the series collection that I have.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited to see that.
Yeah, totally. It's going to be fun to see the Hollywood Bowl.
In 50 years ago?
Yeah. That'll be great.
Monty Python Live, mostly, 1 down, 5 to go. The Troops reunion/farewell show ran for 10 shows at the O2 Arena in London in July of 2014. The final performance on July 20th was live streamed to cinemas worldwide.
Yeah, that was very cool.
I remember that when they were advertising it. Douglas Adams, creator of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and co-writer of the patient abuse sketch, once said,
I loved Monty Python's Flying Circus. For years, I wanted to be John Cleese. I was most disappointed when I found out the job had been taken.
So funny. He's so
They're all
funny.
such absurd weirdos.
Such absurd weirdos.
So smart. Smart guys that are funny are dangerous.
That's true. That's true.
In the best way possible.
Lorne Michaels counts the show as a major influence on his Saturday Night Live sketches.
You think?
Cleese and Palin actually reenacted the Dead Parrot sketch on SNL in 1997. The show was a major influence on the Danish cult sketch show Casper and Mandrill Aftalen, starting in 1999, which Cleese starred in the 50th episode of that.
Yes, we had him in the episode. It was very funny. We did certain things about smelt.
They had to literally keep going meta with it. It's like, oh, you influenced us? Well, I'm showing up on your show.
It's John Cleese on the show.
In computing, the term spam and the name of the Python programming language are both derived from the series. This is the influence the show has had.
Well, look, there are so many sketches that are iconic. The spam sketch. Spam, 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 spam.
What if I don't want any spam?
I don't want any spam.
What do you mean you don't want any spam?
Everything's got spam. Well, I love spam. I'll have the spam, 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 spam. Beans and spam.
We're out of beans.
No, just have the spam, 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 spam. And then it goes into
That's so funny.
all the way to the end, the credits. And this is probably one of the first times that was done, which John Spam done. Spam, spam,
Yes,
spam.
yes,
Spam,
with all the
yes.
the random weird names.
Yes. The female characters that the kids in the hall do are direct descendants of the female characters that Python does.
They're so good.
Their voices, the great thing about it is they weren't basically just being women. They were being their version of women.
Yes.
That were very hard to take.
Was Terry Jones, his old matronly mother character, is so brilliant.
Yes. They all had different versions of the women they played. John Cleese was a very different...
He would try to play the beautiful women, and it was so obviously not.
But the... Wink, wink, don't you know. Yeah. That sketch, too, is so brilliant because the quote-unquote punchline the reveal is like, what's a woman like?
Yeah,
what does it feel like to touch a woman?
He's just so ribbing him, and he's getting so annoyed, and then it turns out that he has no idea.
Yes, and Terry Jones was so good at playing the, put upon, hey, what are you doing? Get away from me. It's gleefully silly and smart. There's not enough adjectives to describe how unique and wonderful Monty Python is.
It's such a joy.
They are the grandfathers, the fathers of modern sketch comedy. There would not be any of these shows without Monty Python.
No.
They redefined what sketch is. Sketch was a lot of time. If you want to see what America was doing with sketch, watch some of the old specials with Dean Martin or Sinatra stuff, and they'd have these sketches. They were just they were just concept punchline joke. You know,
right.
And nothing really the same stuff that they were doing back in vaudeville.
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
the same
yeah.
type of
Very-
setup. Ba-bum, ba-ding, ba-dum, bum.
Yeah.
You know, and then these guys come around and they eliminate the punchlines and they completely redefine what sketch comedy is. They create their own world of comedy,
Yeah.
which so much absurdity lives in,
Yeah, yeah.
and not only just joyous, whimsical, ridiculous frivolity, but also really biting satire.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Very biting social commentary.
Oh, yeah.
Hidden within these absurd, crazy sketches. The dead parrot sketch. You know, how absurd is that? You know, but you're, you know, I was not dead. Yeah, it's what we're seeing today in the world is basically the parrot sketch.
Yes,
As
yes.
we're coming in, like, the United States is, no, it's fine.
It's
Everything's
fine.
great.
It's fine.
No. Just wiggle it a little bit. Just sleeping, you know.
Just banging it on the table.
Yeah.
I am pretty sure he is dead.
The Spanish Inquisition. You know, I learned so much about history watching that show.
Oh,
Because,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know, it's such nerd effing comedy,
Yes,
man.
yes.
Because of the minutia that they get into on these issues or these tiny little historical eras or whatever
Yeah,
that
yeah.
they jump into, where they're gonna, we're going to be talking about coal, you know, miners, but it's coal miners, you know, who dance and sing and, you know, they want to
Yeah.
be Broadway stars or whatever it is.
That's what. But that's juxtaposed with like, and now the lodge,
The Lodge.
just over and over
Yeah.
and over, and it's like what it's so amazing seeing these guys. It's like these guys are doing PhD comedy,
Yeah.
and America at the time was still in preschool.
Yes.
Like it is so light years ahead and so evolved.
It
and
is a-
so grown.
completely different level, and I truly believe that their success and their innovation comes from the fact that they were writers and not performers.
Yeah, yeah.
Because the best performer in the world doesn't matter if he doesn't have great material.
It literally could have been anybody performing this
Yeah.
stuff. I mean, they were great performers, don't get me wrong.
Great.
But other six guys could have done this, and it still would have been very funny.
But they also had this insane chemistry
Yeah.
between
Yes.
them
Yes.
that they melded together in such a perfect way that no matter what they were doing, whether they're bishops in the Spanish Inquisition, you know, or
Yeah.
they're Gombies, or whatever they are, there's
Michael Two Sheds Johnson.
yes, but they commit, man. The
Yeah,
commitment is there.
That is the thing. None of them played for laughs.
No,
They
no.
all did it as serious as possible.
Yes.
Because and that's part of the reason when they played women, it was like, yes, they were doing caricatures, but they were playing it straight.
But like the sketch where they had the old lady gangs
Yes.
that were what you
Roving.
doing?
It's just beating guys to death.
Yes. Give us a cigarette. I'm going to get you. And it's just that with them smoking and like acting like toughs. That was the thing. It was just so absurd.
So good.
And they gleefully did it. And nothing seemed manufactured. Nothing seemed performed. And like you said, nothing was geared to... Nobody's mugging for the camera.
No.
Nobody is winking unless it was called for.
Unless it was part of the meta nature of the show.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just done perfectly. Like I said, I'm getting ready to start the third series.
Yeah.
I cannot find one flaw in the
No,
first two
no.
series. Not one time where I was like, it was all right. I kind of dropped the ball on that one.
Yeah. No, never was it not interesting.
No.
Never was it not funny.
No.
It was so the whole thing with the alien that comes in and changes them into Scotsmen.
Yes!
And they have to run that weird run they would do, like
Yes!
the shuffling run.
And then the guy's like, whoa,
And it was-
then the guy's like, well, we sell kilts. Now we're going to sell a lot of kilts. And
It was all just so they could win a soccer match. Like it was so bizarre.
absurd.
Oh god, it was so brilliant.
So funny. And the fact that this was made 56 years ago and it is still prescient and
Yes,
evergreen
yes,
and
yeah.
still funny and still relevant, it's kind of scary.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a,
think
a
that's-
treatise on how we have not grown.
I think it's more of like a sad.
It's like, nope, same old problems. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Know what I mean? Know what I mean?
Know what I mean? Everything's the same. Getting worse. But you're right, man. What a joy to revisit this.
there is so little joy in the world right now,
Yeah.
and man, all the episodes are available on Plex.
Yep.
If you can download the Plex, granted, you're gonna have to deal with some really long commercial breaks.
Yes.
But it's worth it. It's worth it to watch it. They're so good. They're so funny.
You can also pick up all of them on DVD,
Yes.
relatively
Yes.
cheap. If you
Yeah.
want to hit it on eBay or get it used, this is definitely something you want in your collection because you can pop in any episode, any series,
Yeah.
and it's going to take you away. You're going to escape into this wacky, smart, incredible world that not only makes you laugh, but makes you think.
Yeah.
And these guys, so often, the term genius or groundbreaking are these are interchangeable and are often overused ad nauseum.
Iconic.
Iconic, yes, thank you. But every single one of those words is apt.
Yes.
This is an iconic show with
Yeah.
iconic sketches and the best sketch performers, hands down,
Yeah.
of any group ever. And I love Kids and All. I love
Oh, they're
Saturday
great.
Night.
They're great.
I love SCTV. And I'm not saying those guys were not brilliant, but this unit, there's never been anything like it, and there never will be.
No.
Ever.
No.
It came around at the right time. They changed comedy forever. Watching Eric Idle on Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend. Conan O'Brien is so reverent about these guys.
yeah.
Any comedy icon is like, we owe you so much.
Oh yeah. Oh
And-
my God. Conan O'Brien stole a lot from Monty Python,
And he admits it.
And so, but in a brilliant way.
Yes.
Yes. But it's so obvious their influence on him.
There are a bunch of us, comedy nerds, that once we discovered Python changed our lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
It literally changed my trajectory in terms of comedy.
And they do it so well and so confidently
Yes.
that I want to go write sketches.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, you can do this because they make it look so easy.
For the first time in years, I really, really missed being in a comedy group watching this. Because it's inspiring.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You know, it gives you something to aspire to, and it makes you want to be a better writer, performer. You're never going to get up to that level, but to have something to shoot for like that,
Yeah.
that's what you need to improve yourself. You know, you don't get stuck in your laurels and think that you're, you know, and there are so many comedy groups out now, and if you are a younger person in a comedy group, really pay attention to the fact that these guys were writers first and performers
Yes.
second, and and really pay attention to the fact that there may have been squabbles with the writing and the putting the show together, but in terms of performing,
No.
it seemed pretty smooth.
No. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's give up your egos. What's best for the show is best for the show. If you're ego driven and you want it to be about you, then be a stand up.
Yeah.
Or go do something on your own.
Do your own thing. Go solo.
Sketch, improv, it's 100% collaborative. And if you're not there listening and you don't want your person in your scene to be the funniest person, then you're in the wrong game. And look, as much as I talk about how the Choops, how we used to argue and we were mean to each other and all that stuff, I would never trade those years.
Right.
My greatest memory of performing ever was we did 25 hours of continuous improv, 4 of us. And at the end of that 25th hour, with the theater packed, and we're heading towards the home stretch, we're setting a world record, an unofficial world record. The cohesion that we had as a group in that last hour, I can't explain it as anything other than otherworldly.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
The fact that the lights come up and you're doing the same thing because you're so gelled together.
Right.
That, and you're getting laughs together, and you're
Right.
creating something out of nothing that people are just adoring. There's nothing like that feeling. Or to come up with a sketch that just hits and you know it's going to hit.
Yeah.
And it just punches so hard. And those guys, Bill and Matthew and Johnny, the funniest, most talented guys that I've worked with, they all should have been stars. They all should have been super successful. And
Did your 25 hours end with you guys falling asleep on stage?
you know what was really funny is it ended with us having to give a talk to these kids.
Oh no!
These like high school kids that were
no.
doing a theater tour
Oh,
around
nice,
NoHo,
nice.
and they came in for the last hour of the show.
Oh,
and
wow.
then Zombie was like, "Hey, we put together a Q&A."
Oh no!
And so it was like, so because of the Q&A, at some point I said, I was like, "Look, we're old guys," and I think we're probably in our 30s then.
Right.
And I'm like, "We're old guys, and we're still trying it, so you got to keep trying it too," or something like that. I mean, it was all this earnest bullshit. But so we had filmed the whole thing, running up to. I have hundreds of hours of a documentary that'll never be seen.
Yeah.
But at the end, we go back to my house and we're celebrating and we're having a drink and just decompressing.
Yeah.
From all this time. Two of the guys, one of the guys contributed the "we're old" comment to another guy.
Oh no!
Got in this huge fight.
Oh, of course.
And one of them quit the group. So that, if you want to know the troops,
yay.
after our most successful thing, the greatest thing that we've ever done, a great feat in comedy, we couldn't even keep it together.
Wow.
For an hour after the show. I think we might have got back together for a little bit, and then one of the guys left, and we tried to do it with the three of us. But it was a car, man. And without one of the wheels, the car doesn't work.
Right.
And the four of us, it was magic, but the four of us, and it's sad. One of my biggest regrets, I think, is not, if I could go back with the Tubes, because I think we really did have a shot.
Yeah.
I would go back and excise my ego and try to listen to people, because we had people that were like, we want to be your manager or whatever. And we'd be like, no, we have to do it on our own. It was just stupid, youthful hubris. And that's the thing that these guys that made Monty Python different than every other sketch group, except for maybe Kids in the Hall. I never heard of any real,
No,
internal
I
squabbles.
don't think that, yeah.
But it seems like they put the ego aside and they were able, for 50 years, to work together.
Yeah.
And that's amazing.
Yeah. Well, we'll be back next week to see how that all falls apart.
Baby.
With the Holy Grail. Because literally, it's the exact opposite, unfortunately. But they were trying to shoot a movie, and they'd never done it before. So
I can't wait. I can't wait to see it.
It's so good.
Check out Plex or buy yourself some DVDs.
Yeah, get the series, buy the series. If you get the full complete series, I'm sure they're still selling it. You do get the Live at the Hollywood Bowl and Live at Aspen, which was filmed in like 1997 or 98 or something. Obviously with one man down, but it's great. It has, and then the extra stuff is so good. It's just great.
If nothing else, I think you can see the first series on Prime. They don't have the whole thing.
No, I think it's just the first 13 episodes.
You can at least get a taste to see if it's something you want to put in your collection. But if you're a sketch comedy fan or a comedy fan, and if you haven't seen these guys in a while or haven't seen them at all, you're not going to regret entering this world of absurdity and craziness. You're going to have a great, great time.
All right, we'll see you next week.
I don't like spam!
And now for something completely different.
It created a albatross, man.
Yeah.
Not an albatross, but I guess an albatross.
Yeah.
How old was he?
I don't know. He had to have been in his 80s.
He was ageless.
I mean, he had to have been in his 80s because he was their age when he was on the show.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, that plus 50, almost 60 years. Yeah.
56 years.
56 years.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, 50 years from 69 to 2019. That's 50, right? No. Yes, it has to be.
50.
Yes. Math. Okay.
So 50.
So he had probably his 70s or 80s.
Yeah.
Is my guess. Yeah.
Still too young.
Yeah.
Bishops in the
bishops in the church, like
the
Anglican.
Nobody
church?
expects the
Spanish Inquisition.
Thank you, Jesus
Good
Christ.
Lord.
My brain, it's getting towards the end, but even We now return you to your regularly scheduled programming. Harry and the Hendersons, already in progress.